this time. We are Marquez North days away from football time in Tennessee. It really did hit me, though, when we had Austin Tuesday, that the next time we talk to you guys, it will be a game week. It feels good to be back, Brent. Very good to be back.
It does. And I think Tennessee is like every other college team in the country. If they could play Wednesday, they would be glad to play Wednesday instead of Saturday. I think you're at that point, and Ramon, you know this point better than anybody on this program this morning, where you're tired of seeing your buddy across from you on the practice field, and you're tired of scrimmages and all those things. You're ready to go play somebody else, see where you are, see what this team's all about, and we're going to start to find that out next week.
It's very interesting you say that, because by the end of the camp, you feel like you just beat down, got low energy, man, and then that next week comes out and you get your travel bowl sweats, you get that duffel bag, and practice grass seems a little bit better. I don't know what it is about game week, man, but you're right. We're almost there to duffel bag passing out.
Duffel bag day. That was a big day for you, right, Ramon?
I'm telling you, I absolutely
better than McDonald's bags.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, well, back then I'd love the McDonald's bag.
Supersized.
Yeah, well, at least we're not getting it from the Saudis, so it's always
True.
Oh, goodness. Brent, as you look at this Tennessee team going forward into the Chattanooga matchup next week, where is the health of this team as far as Brew McCoy, Cam Seldon, and Keenan Peely? How much bubble wrap is Tennessee going to try to wrap some of those guys in? And how much could we see some of these kind of 50-50 working their way back from injury guys next Saturday?
Well, all those guys are going to be available, and I think you'll see them all play some. Now, I don't know how much. I don't know how many carries Cam Seldon's going to get, but I think they're going to get him out there and lather him up a little bit, let him get hit a couple of times, because you want him to have a little contact before you go play, in NC State. I think Keenan Peely is chomping at the bit to get some snaps. I think you want to do those things, and Brew McCoy got his way and won a debate on scrimmaging, and actually got to scrimmage some in the last scrimmage. So you're going to see all those guys play, but I think you're going to see a bunch of bodies play. I don't think you're going to see anybody put a heavy snap count load on any one particular player or position in this Chattanooga game. But that's not a knock on Chattanooga. But this is a game where you should play a lot of people. You should get a better gauge on where some guys are against somebody other than yourselves, and it helps you figure out kind of where you're at and who's above the line of help and below the line of help as you get ready to go play some Power 5 opponents.
Brent, how big is Cam Seldon's role going to be in this offense? Because I remember when he was recruited as that kind of Swiss Army knife, you could put him out at wide receiver during a drive, then you could bring him in and play running back, and almost being a Deebo Samuel kind of role. What do you think that looks like for him this season?
I think he's a running back all the way, and part of the reason is twofold. One, he missed all of spring practice, and so I don't know that you got to tinker with the toys, so to speak, very, very much. And he's been working his way to get back. He's got a new position coach. He's still got plenty to learn in pass protection. And then the other thing, too, is whose spot's he going to take at the receiver rotation? I mean, you're pretty deep at the receiver spot there. Now, I think you can throw it to him out of the backfield, but in terms of lining him up somewhere other than running back, I don't think that's the direction Tennessee's going to go because of how deep they are at the receiver spot and how versatile they are at the receiver spot. When you talk about, Chris Brazzell and Brew McCoy and Squirrel White, and Chaz Nimrod, Dante Thornton, Mike Matthews, those types of guys. And then you got Ethan Davis at tight end who could actually go out and be a big receiver for you as well. So you got quite a bit of flexibility and depth at the receiver position that I don't think you're going to see Cam Seldon do anything more than really play running back.
Brent Hubbs with us this morning, the VolQuest on 3. Hubbs, you had in your war room today that there's a lot of O's or S's at the end of the depth chart, man, for this defense. Hubbs, for all the hoopla that was made about Coach Heupel and his staff, right, as far as the offense goes, should we keep this a state secret, how good this defense could or should be?
Well, they're more talented, obviously. They've flipped that side of the ball from a talent and roster standpoint extremely well, and they're deep. We've talked about the defensive line for the last 3 months, and literally they're 14 deep there. And they're going to rotate a bunch of those guys. I mean, a bunch of those guys. I don't know that a defensive lineman is going to play more than, 30 to 35 snaps a game. There'll be some games where you're going to look at that defensive line snap count, and there'll be 9 of them play 24 snaps. And that's the way Rodney wants to play it. He has the luxury of being able to do that because of how deep they are at that position. They got more depth at linebacker, and they have more bodies in the secondary. They're just not proven. I think depth charts are pointless, okay? And I know that we've given them out through the years, and that's what they've done. But, you don't want anybody to look at a depth chart and say, wait a minute, I'm third team, or I'm this. So you just put an or beside everybody. I mean, they won't put an or at the quarterback position, right? But, and they won't put an or at the punter position. And they shouldn't at James Pierce's spot. But everywhere else, basically, I think you're going to see a lot of ors because in this day and age, that stuff matters to kids. And coaches don't want anything out there about their team anyway. So I'm really not sure why we do depth charts because I don't think they carry a lot of weight and carry a lot of volume. Like I think the left guard position is a legitimate or because I think they're going to play multiple people there the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season until that thing really sorts itself out. But, we know who the starting tackles for this team are, right? We don't need to put an or out there beside those guys. But we will because that's what coaches all want to do, and it's like a preseason coaches poll. They don't they don't vote on any teams. That's a sports information director voting on a team, and the depth chart, they don't want any information out there, so they just put an or beside it. He's the most popular player in the country, or.
You say that, but you don't understand how many times we try to sneak into coaches' offices and see the depth chart, okay, Hubbs? We needed to know where we were, okay?
I understand that, but that's why they put or in there,
right?
So you know where you're at. Like, I may be a starter,
or not.
Or not. Did you get any first team reps today on the practice field? That piece of paper probably doesn't mean a whole lot, right?
For sure. Hubbs, this year, man, there will be some new players on this roster on the field for the first time, man. Chris Brazzell been one of those guys, man, and just a plethora holding stays, right? Other guys, who's the transfer, either new guy that you're excited to see on the field that may be a surprise to the Vols this year?
Well, I want to see Jermon McCoy at corner, and that's not a surprise name. He was a plug and play guy. That secondary is getting completely revamped, and we see what a good corner can really do and how much it changes things. You go back to last year, and before Kamal Hadden got hurt, they're playing pretty well in the secondary. After he got hurt, they gave up almost 80 yards more a game through the air. So if you got one guy who can shut down a side of the field, it completely changes how you play your safeties, how you roll coverage, how you do different things. And when Kamal Hadden got hurt, it really balanced out the field for the offense. And I think I'm curious to see how McCoy's transition to the SEC goes. He's had a really good camp. I think he's a fascinating story. He was a high school wide receiver. Oregon State signed him to be a wide receiver. They had a need. They flipped him to corner. He became a freshman all-conference player, led the team in pass breakups and interceptions, and solidified himself as a corner to the point that he became one of the top transfer corners in the portal window last December, having arrived at Oregon State months earlier as a wide receiver. It's a pretty fascinating story. I'm curious to see how he plays. I think he's going to have a really good year. And I think the transfer nobody's talked about or hasn't talked a ton about is Miles Ketzelman, the tight end from Alabama. Perceived to be just a big guard, basically an extra offensive lineman out there. He's much more athletic. He plays better in space. He's a guy that they can do some things with. I think that they're going to play a lot of not a lot, but a good bit of two tight end sets. I think you'll see that some in the red zone where they can create some matchup pluses or advantages for them with Ethan Davis and a second tight end down there. I think that's going to be a nice little potential wrinkle for this offense.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joined us this morning on RKW like he does every Friday at this time. We've chatted about this a little bit on our show before, but the possibility of the SEC passing in terms of an injury report requirement. So what are you hearing, Brent, in terms of when that could come out, and how, if all, does that affect anything when it comes to game planning for these teams?
Well, there's talk that the day that they're going to release it for SEC games only is going to be on Thursdays if it passes. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see how detailed you have to get. Everybody might Belichick it and just put questionable. There might be 19 players questionable each week. And it might be, they might have a coach say, well, we put that out so we didn't get fined, to go off the Marshawn Lynch theory and things. I don't think it's going to change game planning. To be honest with you, I don't think that there's going to be shocking news. Like if you know a guy's not going to play, I still think coaches are going to list him as questionable, even if he hasn't practiced all week, right? I mean, Ramon, you remember those days?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's dang near lost a body part or something. We think he can go. I think there's a good chance he'll be able to go on Saturday. It's like, really, I saw him on a scooter about 5 minutes ago. But we think he's got a chance. I mean, that's just the way that's going to play. So I don't think that thing is going to be nearly the big deal that some people thought it was going to be back in spring. When it was first talked about. I think there's going to be plenty of ways to satisfy whatever you're supposed to put out and still not give away any trade secrets or anything like that. And listen, the SEC may change. I mean, the Big Ten has one,
Yep.
And it was never a story because they put theirs out on Saturdays, like hours, a few hours before kickoff. Well, if the guy's out there not running around, you probably know. And I mean, coaches have got to the point where we're going to dress a guy for warm-ups and let him stand around out there, and then they go into the tunnel and he comes back out in street clothes. It's like, guys, he didn't do anything in warm-up. He didn't take a rep. He's not going to play.
Yeah.
But we've also seen coaches through the years on the practice field put a guy in a different number practice jersey to try to hide an injury that way. So, again, there are lots of ways to get around that. I don't think that that's going to be a significant thing at all for this college football season. I think in-helmet communication and iPads on the sidelines are going to be probably a bigger storyline than any injury report out there for the SEC.
Brent, on a facilities front, when it comes to their opener, what can people, maybe expect in terms of how things look and, when it comes to the parking and just to be prepared when they come into town if they're coming from out of town?
Well, I mean, all the roads are going to be open. There's going to be a lot of cranes because they're building a lot of stuff on campus. And obviously, as you come down Peyton Manning Pass, the nursing building's not done, but road's going to be open and all that's going to be ready to go. I think if you're going in the south end of the stadium, it's going to be wider in spots. You're going to be able to see what it's going to be like, but there's still going to be some equipment laying around that's inside chain link fencing because they're not taking all of the equipment out because they're going to do some work during the week between games to continue to work on that project. Now, nothing major, but they've still got equipment up there that they can work on, the new bathrooms and concession stand area and stuff like that that'll show up in 25. They will not do anything where the founder suites are. I think the biggest thing for people going into the stadium, if you have tickets in the south end, they have changed that student gate, which was a temporary gate last year, and there was a huge bottleneck at that ramp at gate 10 that caused some people to nearly be late for kickoffs and a lot of frustration just being jammed up in there. They've moved that student gate down to the bottom of the south end now. They've got them a new gate there. So I think that's going to alleviate a lot of the bottleneck there at gate 10, which should make it easier for fans in the south end to get in and out of the stadium compared to what they had a year ago.
Nice.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest, our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brent, on the recruiting trail, David Sanders joins the fray officially over the weekend. You get Jaden Hartman, the flip from Alabama. Onis Conan-Banning next, announcing his decision this weekend between FSU and Tennessee. If that goes the Vols' way, like I think a lot of us have certainly expected and you guys have discussed for quite a while here with us, who is the next big target? I know David Sanders had mentioned that he will kind of take the George McIntyre role and help Tennessee recruit the likes of Kendra Harrison as well.
Yeah, Harrison and those guys are in the 26 class. And David's got a teammate. Harrison's coming into Providence Day there, and then the tackle on the opposite side of David Sanders, Leo Delaney's a Power 5 guy who's going to have options to go about anywhere he wants to go in the country. He's not going to be as highly ranked as David Sanders, but he's going to be a highly sought-after player who can play a lot of places. So I think Tennessee's going to try to set up shop in Charlotte, and David Sanders is going to work on those guys. In terms of the 25 class and what might be left, I think Tennessee will still explore the running back world and potentially look at what's going on there. Tennessee commit Justin Baker, who's a running back from down in Georgia, took a surprise visit to North Carolina at the end of July. And so you kind of wonder how stable that one is. And does Tennessee feel like they can, maybe there's somebody they like better at the running back position? Tennessee clearly likes Dwayne Morris from Oakland. The challenge has been he's committed to Southern Cal. The challenge has been to get him to Tennessee's campus, and they've not been able to do that. They're still going to try. They are trying to get him to come to a game this fall. If they can get him on campus, then that recruitment gets real. But in my opinion, until they get him to campus, I think that's a long shot at best. I don't know how real that would be. But that's the next – to me, that's the next name. Now, I think they'll flirt with some defensive linemen out there. They'll evaluate some defensive linemen. And then see, do they want to, is there a high school kid that they really fall in love with after looking at his first 3 games, much the way they did Arian Carter a couple of years ago, or is that going to be a portal position? So we'll see what that looks like as the fall goes about. I mean, at this point, you're not taking a guy just to take a guy, because you're probably looking at deciding on whether or not you're going to take another high school player, or you're going to go to the transfer portal route. With the remaining spots that you have. You're going to be very selective down the stretch here.
All right, Brent, on the way out, I'm going to give you a name you probably not thought of in a long time.
It can't be as bad as last week.
No, it's not. I promise you. So I brought up Derek Brodus the other day on the show. Ramon and Kayla were unfamiliar with the saga and the legend.
Derek Brodus from the frat house, baby.
That's right. That's exactly what I said. What do you remember the most about the frat house kicker who was brought in as an emergency kicker to kick for Tennessee?
I can tell you what I remember the most about him was in warm-ups, you saw the injury happen, and that kid's name he was from Memphis, and I can't remember the walk-on who pulled his hamstring. I apologize to him, who was not going to kick in that game. And I got a note that Tennessee didn't have a kicker, that they were hurt. And I asked some people, where are they going to go with a kicker? And they said that Coach Dooley told them to go find Derek Brodus, that he was not in the stadium, but somebody needed to go find Brodus.
Wow.
And so they go and find Brodus, and the story, quite frankly, was pretty complicated to explain in a commercial break, during pregame on where it was at. So when Brodus went out to kick, that was one of the first times I was ever on air during the game broadcast for the Vol Network, because I just went on the air with Bob. He just said, here, turn on his mic, Brendan, you can explain coming out of the break why Derek Brodus is here and what's going on. So I got a soft spot in my heart for Derek Brodus, because he allowed me to start being a part of the game broadcast. But it was a wild story. Kid got hurt, pulled his hamstring in warm-ups, and they're looking around. There's no other kicker option because, the dress roster and the number limitations that you have in an SEC game, and Dooley said, go find Brodus. Now, I don't know that he was at a frat house.
Right.
I think he was probably at his apartment. That story became legendary, like he had been on some kind of bender or something, and they drug him out, hung over. I mean, I don't think it was anything like that, but he was at his apartment going to watch his boys play on TV, and it's kind of like the scene in Apollo 13 where they go wake him up and say, hey, we got a problem. We need you to come to mission control. Like, Derek Brodus, you got to save the day, man. You got to save the team. Come in. And he walked right in and made a kick, and is a forever legend in the Derek Dooley era, Derek Brodus.
I love it.
Incredible story.
They didn't know where Rommel was, but they knew where Derek Brodus was. Brent Hubbs joining us every Friday here on the show. Next time it will be game day eve. The next time we talk to you, Brent, we are looking forward to it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Yes,
too,
sir.
Brent.
There's Brent Hubbs with us this morning. I told you that story is
That
as
is
good
wild,
as advertised.
dude.
It's
Golly.
awesome.
The legend.
That's cool that was when Brent got his first Vol Network opportunity too. I had no idea that part of it was tied to it.
What in
That's
the
free.
world?
He always
so
has
cool.
like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know you brought up the obviously the story, but then he goes into such details about it. He
Oh, yeah.
doesn't skip any details.
I love it.
It's amazing.
Amazing. All
That
right.
was